Alright, well, I'm going to bring Photoshop up. Well, then I'm going to take on this one. This is an image that Chris sent me during the week, and quite frankly, I thought, this is going to be simple, and it turned out to be a lot more complicated than I originally thought. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but mainly there's this cyan cast over the whole image, and so we're going to make that go away and try and enhance and expand the color a little bit. And so the process I'm going to take you through has kind of been my workflow lately. As I kind of hinted in my response to Steve Jordan's question on the forum, I've been changing the way I work a little bit, and this is kind of what's been working really well. And a couple of people, and Mike and Lee and a couple others, have been kicking this around back and forth, and we've been getting very solid results with this process. So I want to show it to you and see what you guys think. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle the luminosity. And I know that in some workflows, especially Dan Margulis's picture postcard workflow and a couple others, he wants you to tackle color cast right away. But what I've been finding is that if I don't tackle the luminosity, I don't necessarily know the full extent of the color.
That's not okay, is it?
What's that?
Ah, did you hear me, Greg?
Yes, I did.
Aha! Well, I found the right button at long last. I do apologise.
Don't. No problems at all. That must mean Mr. Zoggy.
Yep, it was indeed. I'll now shut up and listen to you, Greg.
Uh-oh. This is my biggest fear, Chris. Okay, anyway, so what we've been doing lately, and I'm going to talk to the whole group, but what I've been doing lately is tackling luminosity first. And it relates to some of the things that come out in the Dan Margulis picture postcard workflow. But the reality is, there have been many times where a color cast is going to show up when I tackle a luminance later. So we've moved it further forward into the process. I start by making a copy of the background image, and then I flip over to channels. And I look at each individual channel, and I'm looking for strengths and weaknesses in the channel. And generally speaking, most of the time, I find weaknesses in the blue channel, and I end up replacing it. Remember, we're talking strictly about luminance here. We're not talking about any color whatsoever. We're going to apply this layer in Photoshop as a luminance layer. So I really could care less about the colors other than finding detail information inside of the channels. So I'm going to select a single channel and go into Curvemeister. And as you can see, I only see the single channel. And I can start looking for thresholds if I want. There's one approach to it. And the goal here is to improve the channel contrast and still try and hold detail in the brightest highlights. There's lots of different schools of thought. One of the things that I've been doing lately, and I've found a bug in the pins, so I'm not going to use these zone system pins. But for instance, if I wanted the highlight in the splash in the foreground to fall into zone 8 or 9, I'm going to try and use a Curvemeister tool here and just see where it is. It's at about 228, which puts it right into zone 9. So I'm okay with that. Is everybody kind of following along here a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. The intent is to not blow out any of the highlights, just to try and get the image back to... Was someone assaulted? Sounded like a punch there. The idea is to get the channels back into some place where they're have full range and detail, and yet as much contrast as possible, to make the image look better. So as you can see, we're just taking each channel one at a time. And because this image has good detail, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. In the blue channel, nothing is really blocked up. It's a little noisy, but I'm attributing a lot of that to the JPEG, first of all. And there appear to be some splashes on Chris's lens here. I'm not certain. Probably because he was so close.
I had to reduce the quality like stink for this to get it into your sizes. You know?
Yeah, no, without doubt, Chris. I can see it. Not criticizing, just pointing out some things that we're not going to really deal with, some of the little specks and noise, etc. But there's great, actually pretty good detail in the blue channel, which is rare. Probably 1 in 6 images has blue channel that you can use. Maybe a little bit more. It's hard to say. But I'm going to adjust this as I did the other two to bring out some of that shadow detail. And I'm just going to check that highlight. There's a highlight right in here I'm after. And that's actually not bad. That means I'm going to have really good detail in the splash when we're done. So now, looking at it, this is where we started. Just by enhancing individual channel contrast, this is where I've gotten it to. So I'm going to switch this over to Luminosity, and then I'm going to flatten it. Now I know a lot of people like to just keep working and adding new layers. I want Photoshop to do the calculations and make the conversion in the background, so that what I've done has actually been applied to the image. At this point, I'm going to copy the background layer again, and we're going to go after a regular, good old-fashioned, by the numbers RGB color correction.
Can I interrupt there, Greg?
Absolutely.
With this, Dan keeps on flattening images.
Yep.
I don't flatten images, and the reason I don't flatten them is that, unlike you people that really know what you're doing, I always like the option of going back and saying, oh, perhaps I got that a little bit wrong, I could change this. And I don't get that opportunity if I flatten it.
Okay. And one of the reasons I flatten it is because some of the moves that I've made, I want to reapply to the channels, because it's actually going to change the histogram and distribution of the brightness on the image. So I want that recalculation. But, you know, it is a matter of choice, and if you're getting satisfactory results without it, that's fine. I'm not, for lack of a better term, I'm not trying to dictate a workflow. I'm just going to, my rationale is that if I flatten that image, I recalculate the brightness for the entire image, and then I have a new distribution to work with.
Yeah, the alternative, which I do because I'm still a novice or whatever, is I think it's Shift, Control and E, or is it Shift, Control, Alt and E, that creates a layer,
Control E, yeah.
which adds, which is the sum of everything I've seen so far, and so that's a third layer over the top.
Okay. I'll have to look at that. Maybe that's a better option, because there are times when I reach a point where I go, this doesn't work, and I start over. So I just throw the whole thing out. But in general, once you get working into this, it's a very fast workflow. There's a lot going on right now because I'm having to describe it all to you, but once you start thinking through it, it actually is pretty simple. So from here, we're going to set a couple of markers. I want to look at that highlight. I want to look for the darkest shadow here. I think it's, I thought it was below the rock, so I'm going to try and set it there. And I'm going to choose a rock out here that I think is a reasonable neutral. And I don't know for certain that it is, but I'm going to just kind of watch my hue clock up right over here. I'm going to watch that hue clock and just see if I can find something that is reasonably neutral. And I'm just going to put a marker there. I don't know that I'm going to color correct that yet. I'm just saying that's an area I'm going to watch, because I know the highlights and shadows I'm going to try and drive as close to the absolutes as I can. since this is almost already neutral, I'm just going to adjust the highlight side of the red channel. If the screen's not updating, let me know that I'm working ahead of my dialogue. Sometimes I start working faster and faster, and I don't want to. I want you guys to see what's going on. So I've grabbed the highlight end of the curve, and I'm just going to move it up. I'm using my arrow key to move that up to where that point, highlight point, is neutral. I'm going to now tackle the shadows. And so the red end here, I'm going to drive it down to 8. And looks like that affected my highlight just a smidge. And then I'm going to go to green and do the same thing. I don't have to touch the highlight. I'm just going to push the shadow end down. And it did affect the highlight just a smidge. So now my highlights and my shadows are neutral, or reasonably so. So we can compare back. This is where the image started. This is more color corrected. But my midtones are definitely a problem. Okay, Chris, is there a place where you would set the neutral for this? I'm guessing, and I don't want to guess poorly.
No, my memory's not nearly good enough to remember. This is a year or so back.
Well, then I'm going to try and find a point that appears nearly neutral in the image right now. That's not too bad. And let's adjust it. That way we minimize the neutral adjustment. So what I really need to know is what the average of those 3 numbers is, the second set of numbers. So I always use my calculator because I'm a little slow on the uptake. And I add those 3 numbers together, divide by 3. I need to make sure all 3 channels are at 164. And the reason I'm doing that is to not change the luminance too much. So on red I'm going to find 178, and I'm going to do that by placing my cursor over the curved line and tracking it down to, that's close enough. And I'm going to raise that up to 164. Okay, and the green, same problem. And the blue. And as you can see, we've knocked the other channels around a little bit. So I'm going to switch quickly over here. And we'll adjust red and green. And the red took, this is where you kind of just have to play around a little bit with it. That's close enough, that's neutral, and those shadows for blue, I'm going to take it down to that 7 because I want to get it down near 5 if I can. There. That appears to be in a better place than it was. So where we started, where we've taken it to, and that's pretty much a straight up by the numbers correction using Curvemeister. So I'm going to apply this, and I'm going to make this layer a color layer. That's going to preserve the luminance we created before. Now, Chris, at this point, you would go with what's yours? Let's see, layer. I could turn off the background and merge, but see, I don't have enough layers to merge. You're saying use merge visible, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I create a new empty layer first.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stick to what I usually do, and I'm just going to flatten that. And now we're going to go into the next step of this process, which is going after expanding the color. it's very similar to the Man from Mars technique that Dan Margulis talks about. It's kind of a combination of his color boost action and Man from Mars. This is the part that's still being written. We're still testing a lot of this stuff, but we've had a pretty good success here. So we switch over to the lab color space because we want to affect the color without changing the luminosity. And what I want to do is I want to find a point in this image somewhere that I don't want the tonality to change, the color or the tonality, and I want to preserve the water here. So I'm going to set what I've been calling an anchor. And when I'm done with my adjustment, I want these lab values to be exactly what they are right now, because I don't want this color and that range of color to change. And so the analog, Chris, for picture postcard would be the selection you're making in order to run the action. Does that make sense? Okay. So
going shadow highlight on steroids?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's you'll see here as we go. So there's two areas I want to try and separate some color out. One, the water from the sky. And if you look at where on Curvemeister we have the color worm, and you can see where it is for the sky values, and then when I go to the water, it's a little different. So I'm going to look at trying to maximize that, but I'm also going to look at the greenery in here and try and bring some of this out. So I may work on the difference between this area and the water to get a better result. We're going to try it and see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is zoom in pretty tight, and I'm going to try and make the differences in the grass come out. And I do this by using a control click to set that mark. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to pause there. I don't know if you guys can see the dot on the curve. But
yeah.
Okay, I've marked that spot, and then I'm going to go find another area a little bit further away and mark that. So I have now got two marks on the curve. I'm going to make the picture bigger so you can see these two marks. What I do here now is I highlight them, and then I control click to link them together.
Alright.
Okay? And what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to use the contrast pin feature to stretch these 2 points apart. So I'm going to stretch the curve here. But you'll notice I've upset the color balance, because that B value right here has moved all the way up to -15. So I'm going to use, since they're linked together, I'm going to use the arrow key to push them back down where they belong. Okay? So I'm making that choice, and I'm expanding it as far as I want to. So there's where we started, and there's where we are now. I'm going to zoom in here. A couple of things have happened. Because we're in the B channel, we're affecting all the yellows. So as you can see in the rocks, I'm going to make the curve smaller here. As you can see in the rocks, we've accentuated the yellows a little bit, but we've also differentiated a lot of the grass. There's a lot more color in there and a lot more separation between the hues of the yellow. Okay? So I can stop there, or I could do another one on the other side of the blue, but I'm not sure that I'm dissatisfied with the water right now. I am going to switch to the A channel because there's some red out here that I want to try and bring out as well. So here's an area that's red. Let's start by resetting this curve. So I right click, say edit and reset. Not all, just this one. That clears those control points I had set earlier. And I'm going to set another one here. And I'm going to try and find another point that gives me some separation on this channel. I'm going to try there. So let me make the curve big again. So here and here are the 2 points I've created. Everyone tracking, or have I lost you guys?
No, not me.
Okay. And then I'm going to rotate these 2 again. And as you can see, we have upset the color balance. But since they're linked, I'm going to move them back down to where they belong. Okay. So, if we look at this, there's a lot more red and yellow and orange tones out here.
Yeah.
Almost a skin tone.
Yeah, I see.
Okay. Now, if it's too much, I can add another point here and kind of kill it off a little bit. But we can also use a mask on this layer when we're done to fix this problem. Is anyone objecting to the color so far? Or should I push it further?
Ooh,
Kind of look like sunlight.
Okay, one at a time. Chris.
no, it looks fine to me.
Lonnie?
Yeah, I think it looked like sunlight to me. It looked warm. Yeah, I like it.
Okay. Martin?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay. So we'll stay here then, and I'll apply this. So this is where we started before the color actions that I just used, and that's where we ended up. Okay? And I don't see any objectionable color in here for saturation. Does anyone see any points that they think are oversaturated? I'm just kind of looking really quick. The water on my screen, and I don't know how well it's coming across through Makogo, but the water on my screen positively crackles. It looks wonderful. There's great tonality. We can see the rocks better here. Because of the noise, we're picking up some red, I think, Chris. I could fight it, but I think it's more noise related than actual color cast. And there's a greater difference between the water and the sky now. So we've really accomplished all the goals so far. The last thing I would do to this particular image, I flattened it, is I'm going to add another layer, and on a scene like this, I would use a high pass. Let me drag this in. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'm going to set it to overlay mode. That isn't bad, I guess. Thoughts, concerns, questions? The silence is overwhelming. I'm not sure if I've...
If I may ask you, you said that you were copying this. Will it be possible for us to get a copy of it later? Because we're going through it relatively fast, and one may forget some things.
Chris?
Yeah. Give them the email address of these images.
Okay. You want me to post it to the forum, or do you want me to just put it out here?
Yeah, post it to the forum or put it out here.
Okay.
Either way. Can't quite remember. It's something like CM Photos, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But whatever I emailed you, if you let them have that, then they can pick up all these images.
Okay, what I'm probably going to do, guys, is I'm probably going to start a new thread in the forum just for these conference calls, and I'll put that information out there so you can have the original image. My goal here, I've been recording this as we've been doing it. My goal is to be able to post this as a video link so you guys can re-watch this.
Yeah.
So that would kind of close the loop on all of that. And I'm very hopeful that works out.
That will be great.
Okay. Should we tackle another one?
Yeah, let's go mad.
Let's go mad. Okay, well then I'll open the folder and let you guys pick. If you see something you like, stop me.
Canyon, Chaco Canyon.
What's that?
Chaco Canyon.
This one? Okay, let's take.
The light and the dark here.
This was the end result that I emailed to somebody. So let's see if we can replicate it. And I'll open the other one too so we can see how bad we do. That's where we took it. That's where we started. Let's see if we can do it again. Are you guys' screens keeping up with this?
Just about.
Yeah.
It's always about 3 or 4 seconds after you.
Okay, I'll try and slow down. I love doing this stuff, and so I start working faster and faster. So please slow me down if you are having trouble tracking, okay?
All right.
So the first thing we're going to do again is we're going to go after luminosity. So I'm going to make a copy, switch over to the channels, and just take a quick look at them. And again, this is one of those images I'm probably going to throw out the blue channel because I'm not gaining anything that I don't have in the red and green channel. So I start by using Curvemeister on the channel, and I'm just going to threshold it a little bit, and I want to see what that value is. Boy, I think I'm going to leave that alone. I might want to bring this up. Let's see what I can find in here. Well, there's a lot of detail in there still. One of the problems a lot of people suffer from is they don't use those hue clocks, and you cannot necessarily see on your screen whether or not there's enough detail in these shadows. And oftentimes I will actually go so far as to print a quick and dirty proof print so that I can see what's going to be the end result a little bit. My printer has better resolution than my screen. So if I'm questioning whether or not I placed the shadow in the right area, I'll make a quick print and see. I'll take out a loop or whatever and see what's actually in there. The threshold tool here gives me a lot of info, but sometimes even that isn't close enough for some of the work I want to do. So red, green, blue.
Why don't I ask a silly question while you adjust the blue?
Sure.
Why don't you just take this layer into Curvemeister and look at the image under the RGB in Curvemeister?
Because I can, and it's actually faster for me to go individual channels because I know I'm going to adjust. Let me cancel out. Here's what Chris is asking. Why don't I just go in here and do what I'm doing on each individual channel? Part of it is I have to switch to the red channel to see the black and white, or the blue or the green up here.
Oh, that's a big click, yeah.
I know, but if I'm not going to mess with the blue channel at all anyway, it makes my inspection faster. Maybe it's just a workflow habit, Chris. I'm not sold on it 100%. I mean, I can certainly do just as you have said. I just find that personally, if I come in here and tackle these channel by channel, I tend to focus on it more rather than getting distracted by all of the other channels. And I know that sounds odd, but it's a personal work habit. You certainly can, but you can't get rid of the blue channel by replacement when you're in Curvemeister. So if I go here, image, apply image, and I take the background, copy red, and put it in as a normal image. It didn't do that. What? Let's try this. Oops, do I have the wrong layer selected? No.
Yeah, you choose red instead of blue. You have to choose blue. Yeah.
The source layer is the background copy, red, and normal mode. There it goes. That's better. That's what I was expecting to see a little bit of pink in here. That's
But let's just take you back a bit there, Greg.
okay.
Dan says inspect the channels, and yes, one can learn which are the best channels, and that takes a bit of skill in my mind, and certainly doing the apply. But if you apply before you adjust, then and say you zap the blue with the red, then you've got to correct both the red and the blue, the new blue, which of course is a red. So you'd always want to do surely the apply after you had adjusted the channels that need adjusting.
Correct.
And then say it was just red and green, and then you put the red or the green over the blue, and now you've done it.
That's generally how I work. Yes.
Yes, so going back again, to me, Curvemeister is superior to Photoshop. Certainly in the curves and how I can pick things up, and the hue clocks are just absolutely great. Mm-hmm. And so I would tend to go into the Curvemeister, adjust the channels I want adjusters, and then if I do an apply, I'd do it back in Photoshop after the Curvemeister move.
Okay. Well, let's do it your way. To me, as I think it through, as you talk about it, it really makes no difference. I can do it either way. In order to visualize the channel, I have to switch to red here. And really maybe all I've been doing is avoiding a mouse click.
But you have to do the mouse click when you selected the layer, the channel.
Well, but I can select red and see this as a color image. So here when I'm selected red, I'm seeing the whole color image. There's
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to select the red channel with the red curve, don't you?
right. So I would have
With
to.
normal color.
It's just a matter of working. I could use Control key and just say red and only adjust the red.
Yeah.
Be gone. Point. Okay. So let's.
Well,
We
another
can.
thing-
Go ahead, Chris.
Can I just interrupt once again?
Absolutely.
Another thing that strikes me is that, well, I know I'm using my wife's laptop because I can't get my other one to work, but the size of the curves and the picture that you're playing with are titchy. My sizes are big, and so I actually have an advantage in using Curvemeister, because if I need a big curve, I just blow it up, boom. And I can do that on a separate monitor, an old one that's not very good, that takes the Curvemeister controls and leave my proper screen just showing the image.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If I had desktop room here, I would do very similar. I would certainly open Curvemeister on a second monitor. You can grab the window here, guys, and you can drag it over to another monitor if you have one. Because we're recording this and I'm working in a single space, I really can't show you that. But yeah, Chris, that real estate is huge. And in fact, there's been discussion going on in the background about how Curvemeister is going to go forward. And one of the biggest issues that we're trying to tackle is real estate, because we want to give you even more. And we can do things like we can turn off the ribbon bar. Okay. And I can even hide the pins if I want. That gives you the maximum amount of real estate.
Yeah.
So I can work like this for now. That's fine. Because there's a whole bunch of real estate I don't use. But see, I have a 25-inch monitor, so I have plenty of screen real estate. I don't usually think in those terms.
Yeah. So I too have a 25-inch monitor. But when my son gave me a crappy old LCD screen, it was just great to put all the Curvemeister controls on. And now I've got the whole monitor for the whole image all of the time.
Yep. Oh, I bet that makes it so much easier.
Yeah, it's absolutely great.
So one of the things I am going to do with this that I didn't really do the last time I did this, I'm going to try and boost the contrast a little bit. So I'm going to put a slight curve in this channel. I want to open this up some more as I go at it. I can take a look at some of these values and I can just tell I want them to be more open. So I'll apply that I shouldn't have, Chris. I'm sorry. Let's go back in. I'm so used to my workflow. I'm sorry, gentlemen. And then I have to change this over to green. And the same.
Just pay no attention to me. Do what you need.
I'm always up for a challenge, Chris. You should know that by now. I absolutely delight in the puzzles you put out there. And I just don't like this this blue channel. I'm going to replace it, so I'm not going to touch that. We'll just go back in. Okay, so now I can switch over to the channels. And I am going to look to see which of these two. I think I prefer the red still. So I'm going to select the blue channel, apply the image of the red channel in normal mode. And then I'm going to set this as a luminosity layer. Okay, I think we're a little darker than the previous. Yeah, we got a lot more to go here. But that's okay. We got time. Alright, so the next part of this is to flatten it. And then we're going to do a by the numbers color correction here. And the best part of doing it this way, Chris, and everyone else, I keep talking to Chris, I'm sorry. I get to keep playing with the luminosity as I go. I don't have to, I'm not too worried about, having an action do this work for me. If I see a problem, I can continue to work on it throughout the whole process. So I'm going to just select a couple of quick points. That's actually pretty neutral. There's a little color cast there. And I don't want to use the clouds because I believe, if I recall from this image, there's actually color in there. And this may be one that I don't have a mid-tone for neutral. And the reason, I think maybe I'll choose that and we'll see where we are. That's pretty good actually. So if we hold that to be neutral still, I think the color that comes out, some red and yellow comes out here. So let's take the shadows down, same process as before. There it is. And the red. And the highlights stayed okay. The mid-tone blue drifted a little. And that'll be acceptable for now. And we apply this as color. And at this point, if I recall from when we did this, the user who sent the image said, but I want this brighter. It was actually much brighter. So we did go in and do a shadow highlight. And we turned down the highlights a little bit. No. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. There we go. It was the shadows. Because we do want to maintain some of that weight. Okay, so that, again, it's flexible. We can insert things like that whenever we want. We don't have to step around things to do something like that. Now let's go into the color boost. And we jump into lab. And I just want to check it because we've been dealing with luminosity a little bit. And we're okay. So now one of the issues that we had was there's actually some green in here, but it didn't appear to be very green. So we're going to set one of our marker points there. And we're going to try and find a place where we get some difference here. And there's not a lot of room. I think I actually manually set this one. I'm going to link those 2 points together. And I'm going to force it to be green. Let's go back up to where we know we have a gray. and make that the same color as it was before. So it does bring the greens out a little bit and separates them from the rocks. And I'm going to reset the B channel, and I'm going to try and enhance some of the yellows. And I'm just looking for a place that is a little bit different so that I can find some place to spread these colors out a little bit. And that's actually not bad. It brings the blue back in the sky. Doesn't oversaturate any of the rocks. Nothing terrible sticks out. So let's see how far we've come. Now, we went further in this image, didn't we? You know, it's hard for me. I can try and replicate that image, but I'd have to do more by way of color. As you can see, we brought out more color here. I had the actual photographer just talk me through that, so I'm lacking a little bit. But let's go after it. I'm going to brighten this up. Now I've challenged myself, guys. I want that to be brighter.
What is it for?
I was just saying, day off. I'm going over tomorrow.
How are we doing now? Still brighter. So we need more color. So let's go back in here.
There's another message as well. There are two messages.
And let's manually adjust just the B channel.
Yeah, I can stop anytime.
And I'm going to actually set a neutral. I'm cheating a little bit, guys. There we go.
Alright.
My goal here is to try and replicate what we did before. Not bad. Now we're getting better. Again, I'm adaptable. I don't have to stick to any particular processes. I just throw it together and make sure it works. And again, for this layer, I'm going to, because it's an outdoor scenery, I tend to use that high pass filter where there's no faces, so long as I don't pick up any haloing. There's a little bit going on here, but not too bad. There's no color shift to it. So we did brighten it more in the previous, but that's not a bad place to end up, considering where we started from. Questions, comments, pleas for mercy?
The Curvemeister could do the man from Mars maneuver.
Oh yes, very well. Would you like to see me apply it to this?
Yes, to intensify the browns, yeah. To break apart the browns.
Break apart the browns. Well, I can. Let me set a neutral. And I can just grab the corner here and flex it hard until it breaks over. Right here. And I can do the same here. Okay? So there's Man from Mars. And then I would have to go in here and mask some of this off because we've absolutely hammered this. So let's do that. I'm going to use Curvemeister to create my mask because I'm going to create, I'm going to create a specialty mask I'm going to take the L channel and I'm going to make a mask that
All right.
protects. Ah, I gotta go the other way. Hang on. Went the wrong way.
Hello.
How about inverting?
Let me reset this. Edit, reset. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mask this way. Sorry. That's better. Because I want, this is what's going to help control that HK effect, guys.
It's the back. Is it the back?
Ah!
The back of what?
Not concentrating. Sorry, guys. I'll do this again.
Oh, the,
Not concentrating.
yes.
Boy, am I going to have to edit the video on this one.
No.
You can't end the video, it's cheating.
Yeah, you're correct, Chris. I'll hang out in the breeze if you will.
We learn by our mistakes.
Every time. Let me bring this mask up here. Ah, sorry. I'm going to reset this. I've got too many points here.
Huh? I'm not too sure.
There we go.
What do you ask?
And actually,
Yeah,
I want to even make it more contrasty here. And all I'm trying to do is find the areas where I know I've got a lot of saturation. Okay, I think I've been going too long, guys. I'll do it for a third time now. Sorry to distract you. Wow. I keep forgetting to copy the mask to apply effect.
No, 5 minutes.
There we go. So let me copy the mask this time and cancel out. Now the other thing I'm going to do to this mask is I am going to blur it. And I'm just going to use a light. Oh, that's way too strong. How'd that get that high? I'm going to just use a light Gaussian blur on it.
60 minutes.
And I may even refine it some more. It's a little too orange for my taste. I think I'd work on it a little harder. But we've maintained the detail. Some of this stuff in here is a little oversaturated.
Yeah.
And we picked up this this artifact up here I'd have to work on a little bit. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I'm going to throw that away and I'm going to close that. Gentlemen, we've been on here for an hour. Does anyone have any other questions or anything they'd like to bring out?
No, I think that was very interesting, Greg. And what I look forward to doing is taking the two images that we've done
Okay.
and playing with them as I play with them without considering what you've been doing and see how bad I am compared to your approach.
Well,
That would be very interesting.
I can give you a little preview of what you may see. This is an image that Lee and I worked on together. And this is where we applied both Dan Margulis's...
Nothing is showing at the moment.
hang on. This isn't a good split. Let me... Curvemeister. Here's some comparisons. Lee and I took these images and he did them as picture postcard and I did them the way I would do them. And we created these comparisons to try and ferret out for ourselves where the strengths and weaknesses were and what we liked and didn't like about the picture postcard workflow. So, for instance, this is my workflow. I double-clicked on it. I'm sorry, guys. This was my workflow for this image. And I'm just going to try and use preview. And this is Lee using picture postcard. So that's mine, and that's Lee's.
Didn't really come across here.
Okay, I'm gonna hold up. I'm gonna hold on mine.
Better on the video.
Okay, I'm gonna hold on mine.
Yep.
And now this is what Lee did using picture postcard from Dan Margolis.
Yeah.
And I'll switch back.
Yep, it's changed.
Now,
Yeah.
what we've been finding ourselves, and I'll bring up the PDF here really quick. What we've been finding is, here's the original in the middle. We've been finding that kind of a hybrid is a better choice. There's a little bit more sharpening going on in the picture postcard. And one of the things we also have kind of derived is that Dan's workflow tends to go more towards a print workflow where the shadows are going to be an issue for a printer. And he wants to open them up much, much more than you would for the internet, for web, or for any LCD type display. So we're trying to work it out more and more. It does come down to your personal choices, as it should. And there's a lot of automation going on in the picture postcard workflow that we wrestle with. We struggle with it because there's a tonality loss up in here in this area. I don't know if you can see where my cursor is, but up in the upper rocks in the upper right hand corner there's a tonality loss there, and we struggle with that. And you end up doing the color boost and the Man from Mars action 2, 3, 4 times to try and get the tonality in there, and it's we think we're faster. I don't know if it's better. I guess it depends on your standpoint. I think it's simpler. I think it's easier to learn, and I think it requires you to choose.
Did those two images, did the Lee one have more sharpening than yours? Effectively sharpening?
Well, he used picture postcard workflow, and I don't know how much more sharpening he applied than I did. I tend to be a little softer in my touch than Lee does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying to learn about the color separation techniques.
Yep.
And use that in a workflow where you separate luminosity and chromaticity. And how you have been doing any experimentation in applying that in sharpening the different RGB channels in Curvemeister?
I don't do any of that chromaticity and RGB. I personally prefer to do it in lab. I think it's because lab is a perceptual color space, it's a lot easier for me to see what's really happening. I also think that because I can affect the color without affecting the luminosity in lab, it's easier to do. When you work in RGB, if you change the luminosity of a specific channel, you've just introduced a color cast. And rather than fight those color casts, I'll use the lab tools. To me, it's a lot simpler. And
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I got an action that separated the luminosity and the chromaticity in two different folders. And then from there, you're able to apply curves to each channel.
you can do it that way, certainly.
I'll post a link to the YouTube video.
Yeah, show me how you're doing that, because I'm struggling in my head right now to find an advantage to that. But maybe if I see it, it'll be easier for me to understand what you're talking about.
Yes, okay then.
And I watched that video you posted about the one that's in German. If you know anybody who speaks German and can kind of translate it, I kind of saw what he was doing and I get it, but I don't know that there's a lot of value there. I hadn't decided on that, so.
I looked at it last night again, and I tried it, and I think I figured it out. So I could post the well a kind of a workflow in English.
Okay.
Today. Okay.
Yeah, try and do that, and let's see if there's some.
I tried it on a portrait, and it works. I find it worked good because they don't have any halos at all. No kind of artifacts or anything, so, and they do this. It's sharp up at all the edges, real nice.
Okay. It works better than the Smart Sharpen.
Well, the advantage with it is that it's visual, right?
Okay.
And that you could nudge the maximum exactly as sharp as you want and not as blurry as you want. So it's a matter that it's visual that you could decide for yourself.
Okay.